to the Clive Barker Podcast, episode 99.
That's right. Thanks, Amiga Robot Voice. Hey, this is episode 99 of the Clive Barker Podcast. This one is the Leviathan, the story of Hellraiser, and Hellbound, Hellraiser II. This was a Kickstarter project. If you've listened to our podcast, we've already had 2 episodes about it and countless news articles and stuff. This is the penultimate Hellraiser documentary. So we kind of now we finally got it, and we have to apologize in advance because it's been a month since our last episode. There was a little bit of a delay on the release of this, and then once we got it, it's like 11 hours of footage. So it took us like a week to watch it after we got it. So because of that, we were delayed from our last episode, and we want to say sorry about that. But myself, Ryan, and Jose, and Rob, we all had a chance to sit down and watch the whole thing, and here we got together to talk about it. Hey, this is Ryan. If you listen to the show, you might know that I'm a realtor in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we have this vast audience, but I only know of one of our listeners who lives in Fairbanks, Alaska. Hi, Ross. Did you know you can help me by letting me find you a realtor in your part of the country or world? I have access to networks of realtors, and many of them I know from past experience as a board president and state realtor board member. The best part is it won't cost you anything. After talking with you, I get a sense of what type of person would be a good fit for you. And when I match you together, I get paid a portion of the commission after you buy or sell a property. If you're looking to move or buying property and you'd like me to help you find a realtor that fits your needs, feel free to contact me through the site or call me directly at 907-978-2607. Thanks. Oh, the extra story that's included in Earthling's Scarlet Gospels, the Deluxe Edition, is not previously unpublished. So I think they had originally advertised that it was a previously unpublished story, and maybe because they only... David guessed this online, that he thought it was Lost Souls, and I think that's a really good guess. Because it would be easy to think that's previously unpublished, even though it has been published.
Yeah, originally it was published in a magazine.
Yeah, and it's appeared in at least one short story compilation book.
Oh, it has?
It's called Cutting Edge.
Cutting Edge, yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. I don't have that one. Yeah.
Yeah, with the rose on the front of it.
So I guess if it's going to be a Hellraiser story or a Harry D'Amour story that's not previously unpublished, it has to be Lost Souls.
I would think so, because they wouldn't make that mistake about anything in the Books of Blood.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless it's The Last Illusion, but I think if it was The Last Illusion, they would mention it because it's from the Books of Blood.
Yeah, or in the U.S. they would, it was in Cabal.
All right, so that's the story in the special edition of the Scarlet Gospels is going to be quite probably, and don't quote us on that, but The Lost Souls,
It's a good, nice little story set at Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah. There was a first look at Dark Region's Clive Barker's The Body Book. So the Body Book... And one interesting thing on there, they had posted about something related to that book, but they just sort of slipped in the cover. So finally, we have the actual cover with the Clive Barker sketch on the front.
Yeah, it's blue. It's got some blue paint in the background, which I think are Clive Barker's brushstrokes, and then there's like a sketch of a monster. But does this look? It reminds me almost of the golem-like figure from that story where this guy goes into someone's house and he sees a statue in a bathtub, and you know the one I'm talking about, and the statue comes to life and takes his place.
Human Remains, I think.
Human Remains, yeah. So it kind of reminds me of the statue from Human Remains, at least as it's described in the story.
Oh man, this bugs me that our image is still chopped off.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about that, man. It's
I've got to update the
WordPress.
Yeah, WordPress. I mean, I tried to do it, and then the Bluehost was like, "Oh, we're having some maintenance," and then I got busy with work, and I haven't gotten back to it.
Okay. Well, when you open the image in a new tab, it actually opens the full image. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So. But there's the drawing, which I think may be related to the In the Flesh story, although for me it reminds me of Human Remains. And then there's the body book, and it will feature the body politic and In the Flesh, which is that story from the Books of Blood that takes place in that penitentiary.
Yeah.
And then there's Clive Barker at the bottom. So it's a nice cover.
I don't really think of In the Flesh as a body horror type of story. I think of it more of a ghost story.
Yeah, I would say that story kind of even brought back the book of Blood highways. It kind of he goes into the highways of the
It's more like a city of murderers, isn't it? Like in the middle of the desert or something, and every single person in there is like kind of being punished for the murders that they committed.
That's right. Yeah. And does he visit that in his dreams?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think it's a body horror in the sense that, of course, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read the Books of Blood, but there's this guy who has an ancestor or a relative that was a pretty bad man, and he was executed. And I think that this guy his relative ends up kind of falling into the thrall of this, this ghostly figure that comes back to haunt him. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a lot of body transformation in this story. I mean, the actual act of traveling to another dimension kind of changes the body of this person. So I think in that sense, I guess, it's kind of a body horror story.
Yeah.
Especially at the end of the story when, I don't want to spoil the ending, but there is a certain transformation that happens. So, there's a lot of them, I guess, but it's the body book in terms of body horror. Clive Barker has so many stories that could be fit into this category, really. I mean, like the Madonna,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Right. Or
that would almost be more appropriate for this collection, the Madonna.
Yeah, and Jacqueline S.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What was the Madonna about? I can't remember that.
The swimming pool bathhouse place.
Oh.
With the woman that was giving birth to those little monsters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I always thought that giant...
Kind of reminded me of The Brood, David Cronenberg, The Brood, in a way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. The image of, from The Brood, the image of the woman giving birth to those tumor babies, that's pretty creepy. I always figured that the motherly figure that was in that bathhouse could go on a date with the first American from the from the Midnight Meat Train, because they're like archetypal figures, almost Lovecraftian figures of like male and female.
Yeah. Yeah, they both don't seem to need their other counterpart, right?
Right.
Like the Madonna doesn't need a male to
breathe.
Yeah.
Also, to add to that is, if you're a member to that Dark Regions Club, I think you can go ahead and pre-order that book right now. I'm just not a member of that.
Oh,
the book club or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because now you can have pre-orders and you can have summer early order pre-orders. So it's even a pre-order of the pre-order.
Wow.
You know, if you're in this club, you can pre-order before anybody else has a chance to pre-order.
Yeah, you're in the VIP line, you know, or like the handicap line at Disneyland.
These things are getting out of hand. Really, it's like early pre-order. That's already in the title.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and you guys want to... let's skip down to... Since we're talking about that one, let's skip down to that news item. The Clive Barker Society. So this is basically bringing back the fan club, but they send you a mail-out newsletter, and depending on which version you get, you also will get collectibles in the mail. If you get the more expensive one.
That's the one I'd most likely get, would be the most expensive one.
Yeah.
But it's $170. That's including shipping. $129, but then the shipping you get adds it up to $170. That's still good, because it sounds like you're going to get some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are more gamers than I am, so you guys know about that stuff that loot crates from from other websites that will send you like games and stuff and swag and
it's mostly just swag, I think.
Yeah.
I would never want to do a loot crate because I battle with all the stuff that I buy myself intentionally. It takes up too much space. So I can't imagine some other company choosing for me what they think I mean, and they send the same stuff to everybody. So why would I like all that stuff?
That's true.
I don't know.
I was trying to open up the Real Clive Barker page right now, but I'm getting this error warning that says this web page has a redirect loop. So I don't know what's going on with that page. But I was going to look at it. I know that there's a yearly subscription to the Clive Barker Society. Yeah. I think is $49.
Yeah, that's the basic one, and then there's the collector version.
And I think the collector version sends you a T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a T-shirt, and then also they send you stuff every once in a while. And I don't remember the regularity of it, but
it's cool. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the Lost Souls newsletter. That whenever it used to ship, you would get the newsletter, and then sometimes they would include like, when you joined, they sent you a signed picture of Clive Barker, and then when I got each newsletter, they would send stuff like a print of Piopa drawn by Clive Barker, or that Imagica game card that had like Clive Barker's face on it. I got it through the Souls newsletter. So we used to get these little things.
That's like now the most common card out of all of those because
really?
Yeah, that's the only one you can find on eBay most of the time.
Oh, okay. I get it. It was probably done in the thousands.
Yeah.
So. But this is really cool. I mean, if you're into Clive Barker and you want like rare collectibles, which seems to be the market where Clive Barker's stuff is steering into nowadays, it's like editions and subscription services. I feel really happy about this, and sometimes I feel a little sad because I long for the times when Clive Barker stuff used to be more mass produced, and in the sense that you could get paperbacks would be super available, and you could get a paperback pretty much in any Barnes and Noble, and it kind of kills me a little bit, and I feel a little disappointed that nowadays some bookstores don't seem to carry Clive Barker that much, and I have a tradition of going into a bookstore and going straight to horror or fantastic and look for the name of Clive Barker and see what books they have there.
Me too. I do that also.
When I find some, I get really happy. I even post a picture to social media like, hey, here, I'm at the airport at San Jose. Here's a picture of the Hellbound Heart.
Yeah.
But, I wish there were more, it was more widely available because like the Cabal, the critical edition of Cabal, for example, there was only 300 copies done.
Yeah.
So that there's a lot of fans out there who would want a copy of this unless they go to eBay and pay a lot of money for it. They're probably never going to be able to get a chance to read this in it.
But I kind of see this more as a, that pre-order thing aside, I kind of see this more as like like an awareness campaign in a way. It's sort of like, he's got this team to help him, to collect all of his extra stuff, and they'll send, and they'll send stuff from those gigantic bookshelves out, probably to the collectors, the people who pay the collectors thing.
Sure.
So, and maybe sketches, because there's drawers and drawers of old sketches and things, or prints of sketches, and since they've got Thomas to help out with all that stuff.
Prints of sketches is more likely, right? Yeah. The sketches go on eBay.
Yeah, but so I mean, I think it's good. I mean, there is definitely a bigger focus on collectible, like, limited run stuff, but that might, I mean, I think that if they hadn't done that, just those things wouldn't have been around at all,
Sure.
Like we would never have gotten the special edition Midnight Meat Train in, like, on the shelf at Barnes & Noble or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's just when extra content makes its way to these deluxe editions that you can't find anywhere else, and they're really limited, and they're going to sell out in a couple of days, that it gets really, like, frustrating to be, like, sometimes you're not in a position where you can say, like the body book. There's going to be an edition of the body book that's going to be bound in goatskin, and it's going to cost $1,300.
Yeah, that's not
okay. That's not for me.
Yeah, that's not for the three of us.
And I'm completely okay with it as long as there is a $25 edition of the body book that has the exact same thing in it. That people can buy. It's when stuff like, and I'm not trying to be overly critical of the deluxe edition of the Scarlet Gospels, but it's when stuff like this goes like exclusive, bits of the Scarlet Gospels that are going to be in the deluxe edition. You're going to have to buy this deluxe edition to read this stuff.
Yeah.
That's when I go like, you know what, I kind of disagree with that, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm not.
Yeah, that's tricky because they're looking at it the exact opposite way that you are, and they're saying, what can we put in this to make it more special?
Of course, I understand. They have to justify the price tag on it. Of course.
Yeah. So that's the opposite way of looking at it from what
I think everybody should have a chance to read.
I agree. And that stuff's not worth. Because you shouldn't have to pay $300+ to read that stuff.
Nah.
Right. As long as there is. I understand putting a high price tag on limited editions when the limited edition relies on the being special in terms of the quality of the edition,
and
but not the content.
the presentation and the
presentation. Of course, I completely understand. Charging extra for a deluxe presentation book. I'm just not sure if I am comfortable personally with the idea of including extra content that will only be available for deluxe editions. That's one of the things that I wish that at one point, they would say, well, you can get a paperback edition of this later, but this will always be the deluxe edition, bound in whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. When they thought that there was an previously unpublished story in there, I was feeling really kind of, sad that I couldn't afford to buy that book.
Right.
But now we know that it's it's not previously unpublished. It's
kind of cool.
Probably Lost Souls.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't feel quite as bad that I can't afford that book, but I mean, if I bought that would be 3 or 4 editions of the Scarlet Gospels, on the shelf.
I'll never forget that I became a big collector of Clive Barker because I started off by collecting paperbacks. So, that's, I guess, a lot of collectors of Clive Barker stuff started out that way. So
I did.
The moment that I had that made me stop collecting paperbacks was I was reading Cabal in my Japanese class, and this other kid came up to me and yanked it out of my hands and said, because I was reading it like just prying it open just enough to see the pages. He yanked it out of my hands and bent the spine all the way around backwards so that the two covers touched each other and said, "Why don't you read like this? This is what I do."
Yeah.
And so he put this permanent, crease in the spine that, and to me, he ruined that book. And I thought, I'm never buying another paperback again. And I was really mad. I wanted to hit that guy.
I know. Some guys are dicks.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, he didn't even understand that what he did was wrong.
No, of course not. For them,
Yeah.
it's just a book. It's like a paperback. I mean, we've all had paperbacks that we don't collect. We just buy. I mean, I've read books at the beach. You know, I bought a couple of euros for a cheap paperback of the Da Vinci Code and read it on the beach. You know, I'm not ashamed to say it.
Well, a lot of people buy
the
books
flea
and then
market.
they throw them into a box that they take to the used bookstore to trade in so they can buy other books.
Oh yeah, or sell it in the flea market like I did
Yeah.
countless times. So it's just that sometimes you have that special book that you really identify with, and you're like, "This man, I really love this book. I'm going to keep this book forever."
Yeah.
But sometimes things happen.
Yeah. So Clive Barker needs you. So Rob, this was about they're looking for
artists for comic books.
Yeah. So this is an interesting little tease because we know it looks like something has got a publishing deal, right? If they're looking for artists.
Yes.
We don't know. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's going to be an adaptation of something or a continuation of Hellraiser or NightBreed or something new like Last Testament. or Next Testament. So
They're just looking for people to send in, work and
yeah.
I saw
sequential pages.
Maybe this could be for more future motion comics. I'm just speculating here.
Oh,
Possibility.
Yeah, or illustration.
Books of blood stuff.
Yeah, or illustrating book stuff for other editions, maybe. I saw an artist post on Clive Barker's page the other day, and he got an answer from Thomas Nagovin, and he was asking, "So, hey guys, I saw that announcement, and I sent you guys an email, and it hasn't even been opened yet, and it's like, I just want to know, are you guys checking that out?" And Thomas said, "Yes, we got plenty of emails to go through, and this is going to be a long-term thing that we're thinking about. So we were trying to reply to everybody. We'll take some time to get to everybody, but thanks for sending it over." So,
oh wow,
yeah.
Okay.
So they're still working on that.
It even said they might not get back to everybody, even in that report. I think.
Sure.
They can't get to everybody.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get thousands, stuff upon thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet they're going to have to, trim down the really good artists from the ones that are just, sending things. Because, there's people who, they can probably send stuff on stick figures and say, hey, here's my stuff. Can you guys hire me?
Yeah.
So,
They'll probably have to triage it and have different levels of assistance
Yeah.
and people going through the emails to sort it, narrow it down.
Just like on American Idol, there's always the guys who spend 8 hours in line just to, sing terribly to the judges.
Yeah. So, and going back to that, we were just talking about the Scarlet Gospels Deluxe Edition. So, Doug Bradley has written the foreword for that edition. He's scheduled to.
I would assume he's already done it, because this report was done about
June
about a month
10th.
ago, so.
Holy cow! It's been and that was another thing I wanted to say sorry about, that we took so long to do this episode. So there was a delay. I mean, we had planned on doing this about Leviathan. There was a delay in the shipping of Leviathan, and then by the time we finally got it, it took us, like you said, Jose, it took us over a week to watch it.
Yeah, went on vacations too, so
Yeah. And mine arrived over the 4th of July vacation, so it was waiting for me when I got back on Sunday night.
Oh, that was great. Now you went fishing, and I went to Denver, Colorado. That's great. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that's right. I went halibut fishing. That was a 15-hour drive down there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it used to be a 12-hour drive, but with the toddler, it went up to 15 hours.
You got to make stops.
Yeah, well, and I had a house showing on the way down, too.
Oh, yeah.
Mixing business with pleasure.
Yep. Then you can turn in your gas receipts.
So I think that this foreword has already been written, because Earthling Publications newsletter said the final bonus item for Earthling's Deluxe Edition of the Scarlet Gospels will be a lengthy foreword by the wonderful Doug Bradley. It is an insightful, funny, and moving piece, which makes me think that they've already read it. How could I resist asking him what he thought about his character being killed off? Final formatting, and then everything goes to the printer. Given printer and slipcase maker timelines, the book should be out by early fall, a nice pre-Halloween treat. So there you go.
And we've heard what Doug Bradley thinks about being killed off before, but Yeah.
But on the Scarlet Gospels?
Yeah, he mentioned it really briefly, because I think it was more in the context of, do you think this would make a good movie?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Fangoria had asked him that.
Yeah.
An old Fangoria report.
Yeah, what this Scarlet Gospels, is that slated for like sometime before the end of the year? Is that what it is? I think I remember that. Or is it fall?
It is. See right here, it talks about the finals bonus. It should be a nice pre-Halloween treat. So I'd say that's in early fall.
Fall.
Yeah, their page on Earthling Publications says 2015, and let me see. It says here. I think we've mentioned already the other extras that it's going to have. The color dusted jacket by the Malleus Rock Art Lab, who also did the NightBreed, the director's cut poster.
I love that poster.
I know, I love it too. I had to do I should do a collector's corner because we got those posters signed by Clive Barker.
Ones that glow in the dark?
That's not the one that glows in the dark. That one is a different one. That was the one by artist Vance Kelly. And the original commission had the glow-in-the-dark layer, but the one that they made with Clive Barker does not glow in the dark.
Oh, okay.
So the original commission was just like maybe 50 or 60 of them, and then there was the Clive Barker commission that looks just like the original one, but it's not glow-in-the-dark. So I'll have to clear that up when I make my collector's corner. The cool thing about this book also, it's going to have full-color interior illustrations by Edward Miller, which is a pseudonym for Les Edwards, who's the guy who painted those Eclipse graphic novels of Rawhead Rex and the Yattery and Jack, I think? No, Son of Celluloid.
Yeah, and that NightBreed cover.
Yeah. So, wow, that's really cool. And it's going to have that foreword by Doug Bradley, which I think is going to open the book, and then an afterword by Mark Miller. He will talk about the development of the novel, so I guess he probably has discussed this with Clive Barker. That'll be the short story by Clive Barker, which we assume is going to be Lost Souls. And there's going to be some scanned original manuscript pages with hand edits in the appendix. Then there's going to be the outtake section that we've mentioned before, and all of these will be signed by Clive Barker. So I don't even want to know how much the lettered hardcovers are going to be, because there's only 26 of those. It's going to be hand-sewn into boards and tray case, made by hand, signed by Clive Barker and Les Edwards and Malleus Rock Art Lab, all the artists. And they say price to be disclosed. So, yeah.
And this is an interesting story, Rob, that you had found. Clive Barker audiobooks, you said, are selling like hotcakes. So Crossroads Press released their top 20 audiobooks, and 95% of them were Clive Barker titles.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. Most of his books are on there.
Wow.
I can't remember which ones. Let's see. I know one of the books is number one. It might be a Magica.
Yeah, that's what you said in this story. So this is interesting because I don't know if it's true for all of these books, but at least some of them, Clive Barker owns the rights to the audiobooks himself, not a publishing company.
Oh.
So, that's I think that's why they've kind of really stepped up the production of these audiobooks.
And also, a lot of them have been showing up on Audible.com, right?
Yeah, I think, yes. Yeah, I think pretty much any time an audiobook gets made, it gets put on there, too.
Right.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I'm glad they're doing good, but I'm just not an audiobook guy. I love reading just the books. But that's just my take on that.
I've been doing nonfiction in audiobooks because I drive so much, and the books that I don't want to take the time to sit down and read. But
I like to go back and forth on the page and be able to read any sentences that I think are more beautiful or more descriptive or more important. And sometimes with an audiobook, it's not easy to just rewind back 10 seconds to listen to it again.
Yeah, but for me, if it's like
where you're going to find your part,
if
where
it's
you
just,
lost.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for me, if it's just a book about like parenting or real estate, then those are the ones that I listen to on audiobooks.
Yeah.
So I'm not in it for the language, I guess, on those. Where were we at? Oh yeah, the Leviathan documentary is going to be released. The score, the soundtrack score is going to be released in a limited run on an Indiegogo campaign.
And he was pretty close to getting that done. I contributed to that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And he was close. It was not a large amount of money he was asking for.
Yeah,
he was almost to $1,000.
There's only 100 copies of it.
It's close. I'm looking at the Indiegogo page right now. So it's going to be called A Beautiful Darkness, the score to Leviathan. And there's still 27 days left on the campaign. And he's asking for $1,500. Right now, he's up to $1,009. So there's only $491 required for this. I'm probably gonna contribute to this one too, because wow, that soundtrack is amazing. After I've listened to the documentary, it's just really, really like an alternative dimension Christopher Young soundtrack to Hellraiser 1 and 2.
I think yes and no. I mean, I really, really felt that way about the first disc, but then in the second disc, I felt more relaxed about it.
And so there's several layers of rewards that you can get according to how much you donate, like $5, $10, $25. The $25 will get you a CD. The $10 will get you the digital download. So, yeah.
I did the $25 because I want the actual physical CD.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll do maybe a review on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. On a Tuesday Tunes, I guess.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how much of how long it actually is, because it just sort of was looped. Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah,
it was.
Oh yeah, I was probably going to talk about that later when we talk about documentary. There was some. Yeah. The sound mix of the documentary was good. It was just sometimes I felt like I was listening to the same loop of the music while people were talking, like 8, 9, 10 times, and I was like, and then they switched to the next loop.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh well, it's especially the little piano one for the Hellbound. There's a little piano loop that goes on for like 10 seconds, and it just loops on and on and on.
Yeah.
So after a while, it's noticeable. It starts getting you a little out of the interview. So, but yeah, it's good. It's good.
Leviathan documentary is going to be on the big screen. Has that already happened?
The date for that would be on the 18th of July. So it's going to be next Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, and this might come out, Sunday night as we're recording this, or maybe Monday. So
it's a special. Also, Gary Smart was telling me when I made that post, it's a special 2-hour cut of the documentary.
Oh, that's the one that they had the premiere party with and stuff too.
Yeah, it's a very yes, exactly.
It's at the Electric Theatre in Birmingham, UK. So if that's where you're at and you're listening to this, you probably should go.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's going to be Saturday, 18th July, 3 p.m., Screen 2, and of course, buy the DVD because this one is only 2 hours long, and if you add the Hellraiser 1 and 2 together, you're probably going to get over 7 hours, closer to maybe 8 hours of documentary, but this one's just cut to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So they're probably taking the best parts, putting them in there.
Yeah.
The NightBreed Director's Cut won the Saturn Award, and I think that we had reported earlier that it was up for a Saturn Award, and it actually won. What was the category? Was it best limited
special
edition?
Blu-ray edition.
Yeah.
Oh wow, special Blu-ray edition. So that's awesome. Congratulations to NightBreed. I think Mark Miller and Michael Plumides were accepting the award.
They went
and Andrew Furtado, right? Did he go? I know he was invited. He actually went too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He just didn't go up on the stage, and I don't think he went up there with Mark Miller. Mark Miller did the speech and said thank you and all that.
Right.
So for all the people
But that's
complaining,
big, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is huge. I mean, Saturn, celebrates this edition as the best of that year, and here it goes for all the people who were like, complaining about it. I mean, this is how much work went into it. Here's recognition, even though it may not have come out in your particular Blu-ray zone. I mean, it's still an incredible piece of collectible, because when you look at it, like. The huge box that's not just any cheap old cardboard box. It's a nice looking box. Has this beautiful art by was it Joel Robinson that did the artwork for the cover?
Yes.
And then so much stuff went into this. So much stuff that the documentary, all the extras, the transfer, it's the director's cut. This is the definitive edition of NightBreed for any collector.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually I saw somebody was trying to sell one on Occupy Midian for $60. Just today.
So you can still get them around?
Yeah, so $60, just to remind people they were $80 when they were new, so probably jump on that. It seems like that person's not trying to make a huge amount of money on it, so.
Yeah. And before anybody jumps on this and says, "Oh, you're defending the NightBreed limited edition," but, the NightBreed normal director's cut doesn't come with all that extra stuff, so why should we have to pay extra? But at least it's not part of the movie that's being put behind a collectible paywall.
Yeah.
It's extra stuff that, like effects shots and, other, the $25 edition still has the director's cut. It still has the documentary of the making of, and it still has a lot of material like deleted scenes. Yeah. The stuff that you get in this deluxe edition, it's a little more, it's extras. It doesn't really, it's not part of the director's cut. So in that aspect,
it doesn't change the story. And it was, and also there was they had to do a limited release of the theatrical cut on Blu-ray because Warner Brothers owns that, right?
Right. They didn't want them to, affect their market of their archive edition, which I'm sure is going to die out soon. Frankly,
it's like, well, hey, Warner Brothers, why don't you make your own Blu-ray then?
Yeah, but you know what? I still have nostalgia over that theatrical cut. I mean, I'm happy that there's both that we can choose from.
Yeah, I'm happy that it's on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there are positives and negatives about both, I think.
But I was just all the hard work that everybody put in. It was a very short amount of time this came about. It y'all started in 2010, right?
12.
That's when the Occupy Midian was 2012, and it just took what?
Yeah, it was like March of 2012 from the Mad Monster Party.
Dude,
but the tapes were found. Yeah, but the tapes were found in 2009. So the tapes were pretty much for 3 years. Nobody did anything with the tapes until Russell Charrington decided to cut the transfer to the Cabal cut.
Yeah. And then one screening of it, that was just for fun to see what could be done, turned into a tour. And
first they did a screening of a work print, a VHS rough work print before the Cabal cut. Right?
Yes, that didn't have anything to do with Russell. That was Mark just screening the tapes.
Exactly. Yeah. So congratulations to everybody involved. Congratulations to Mark Miller, Seraphin, Michael Plummetes, even Morgan Creek, because if they didn't want this to happen, they could have totally said no.
Yeah, they could have. And I don't know how much money they made on this, but I mean, it seems like they've, in our circle, it seems like it's done really well. So there's a waxwork LP limited edition NightBreed soundtrack album, right? A record album.
And that's already out. But I reported it was not out yet, but it's come out.
Yeah. So, how many is that limited? Like, only a certain number are being sold?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that's not a huge deal. I mean, I'm just happy having it on CD and on my computer and stuff, and I don't need to have it on LP.
Yeah,
Oh, I have the original LP, the black cover, the big thing with the
oh, cool.
Do you have a
with
record
the red
player?
letters. Not here, but yeah.
Okay.
I used to have a record player, but you're asking if it's limited edition. I'm actually opening up the Waxworks page right now, and let me see. It says here that NightBreed, hard to find and prohibitively expensive. The score to NightBreed, composed by Denny Elfman, is regarded as his darkest masterpiece. Directed by the legendary Clive Barker, NightBreed is ambitious, over-the-top, and fantastic. We are ecstatic to finally bring to you this newly remastered, obscure gem with jaw-dropping packaging artwork. And I've seen pictures of the people who have bought it already. It's really nice. You take out the vinyl, and the vinyl is, tie-dye shirts? It kind of looks like that because the vinyl is colored.
Yeah.
So, and it says here, even more details to come on this special release.
So for the people who don't actually have the soundtrack, then do they also get like a thumb drive, or how do they get the MP3s?
I think usually nowadays, most of these releases in vinyl usually come with a little code that you can redeem online that gives you the MP3s.
From their website or something? Or
Yeah,
is it like
I guess
in
so.
iTunes? I don't know if that's on iTunes or not.
I don't know.
Yeah, I never needed to look for it. That's interesting. Yeah, you said you already have the original LP. So do you think that most people that would be looking for something like this would already have it?
You're talking about the original vinyl?
Yeah, most people. Do you think that most collectors would already have the original vinyl, so maybe wouldn't want this, or would they want to just add this and put it next to the original one?
Well, it's a re-release, so off the bat, it's not as interesting in terms of collectability, unless you're a completist.
It's going to look different, though. I mean, it's going to have a different cover and different vinyl, like you were saying.
I guess it's like, for me, and I'm more of a book collector than a record collector, but I would say it's probably the same difference between buying a first edition of a book and then buying a modern book club edition that looks really nice.
Yeah.
But it's made but it's not the original first edition. So although it's beautiful to look at, it's not the original one.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me when we were talking with Russell Charrington about, NightBreed scripts, and I was like, I have the second draft script, and he was like, oh, but that's not, one of the ones that was on the set. And I was thinking, I never meant to say that it was collectible that way. It's more, the content of it, that, I mean, I'm sure mine was a reprint that was made just to be sold to collectors.
I was actually looking because the announcement said prohibitively expensive, and I was looking on eBay at the original vinyl NightBreed soundtrack edition, and wow, I had no idea that this had gotten so high up in value. I guess it makes sense because the movie's out again, so interest has been renewed. Yeah. But I'm looking at one that costs $75. I'm looking at another one that costs $129.
Wow, man!
But this is a promo. Yeah,
but the one, the new one or the old one you had? The old one.
Yeah, the original. The $129 is a promo, so it has like a sticker that says this is a promo. I guess it was for like radio stations and stuff like that. But a normal vinyl, I see it for $75 on eBay. Doesn't mean that they're going to sell it, but I guess it's cool to know that these things have gone up in price.
Yeah. All right, so, Jay and Silent Bob versus Pinhead. So that was just an idea, right, that was thrown around at some point in the 90s?
After Jay and Silent Bob came out, that was something Bob Weinstein, was like, oh, this is a great idea, let's do this.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this looks like movie, it's going to make movie history, let's do that.
Yeah.
Boy. I understand that, and I think this is true, I've read it several times, that at one point they were thinking about Freddy versus Jason was going to end with them like going into the Crystal Lake in a whirlpool, and they would go...
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and they would go down...
And Pinhead's there.
Exactly. They would go through like this shining hole where the whirlpool was draining into, and then it would be dark, and then Jason would come up, Freddy would come up and be like, "Oh, where are we?" And then they would look at each other, start to fight again, and these chains would come up and immobilize them, and then you would see Pinhead come from the middle of the screen saying, "Gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?"
Yeah,
that was
I guess if they could have secured the agreements for that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit for horror movies.
Personally, I would feel it would be like a very gratuitous cameo, but it would definitely have brought Pinhead to a much broader audience again when that happened. So why not?
Yeah, I mean he's better than Leprechaun.
Leprechaun and the Hood. Yeah. I saw that movie once with Sarah. That was terrible.
Yeah,
but it was really funny though.
I only saw the first one. Didn't he jump on somebody with a pogo stick and killed them that way? Probably.
Yeah, I mean they're all crazy. I mean, there was one where he went to the Hood, back to the Hood. He was rapping. I mean, for some reason. But the reason I like, but there was a reason I did watch all those films. They were all bad, but I liked Warwick Davis. That's why I support. But the Leprechaun. Yeah,
I stayed up all night watching the Basket Case movies one time.
I've never seen those.
Is he in those?
No, it just reminds me of just seeing bad movies.
Yeah, I guess the first time we've ever seen Warwick Davis was when he played that Ewok. I forgot his name. Wicket.
Yeah, Wicket.
Yeah, Wicket. He
played Willow. That's what
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's the Leprechaun. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is. But, Kevin Smith. I mean, Kevin Smith, what would he not do, really? Jay and Silent Bob versus Hellraiser. Yeah. I can see where this would come from. I mean, there was a certain tradition of, horror icons being stuck in a movie with funny characters like, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein or, but I just think that those movies are just more like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. Like, I always felt that they were more like an industry, like, inside joke or something. Hey, look what we can do. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Yeah. Bela Lugosi is Dracula and the Wolfman. And it's not a horror movie. It's a comedy, but, I mean, would we really want to see Pinhead involved in anything like this? I personally would.
No, it totally.
I don't even think Doug would even have been in the movie. He probably would have been like, "You'll get somebody else to play Pinhead if you're going to do this."
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he might.
Maybe, but
he was in a lot of bad Hellraiser movies.
I just opened up the page of Dread Central where they had this article, and it says here, in an interview with Crave Online, Kevin Smith spoke about a wacky idea that Miramax Bob Weinstein had after the release of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, telling the site that once upon a time the offer was on the table to mash the characters together with the world of Hellraiser. And Kevin Smith said, "Yeah, Bob Weinstein said to me one day on the phone," this was after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he goes, "You know what happens with buddy team comedies in the history of cinema?" said Smith. And I go, "No, what?" They stop making them eventually. People get tired. And he goes, "Think about what Abbott and Costello did. They met the monsters." So, luckily that never happened. And then Kevin Smith told Bob Weinstein, "Bob, I can't get my head around that."
Even Kevin Smith knows that it's a dumb idea. I mean, he's smart enough to know that.
Well, yeah.
And he said that Kevin Smith goes on to say that he told Ben Affleck about that, and Ben Affleck started laughing and then stopped and goes, "You know what, man? That movie would make $100 million." Probably.
Yeah, we would all complain about it and then go see it.
Yeah, it says here, "Come on, dude, think about it. It's just so effing stupid that enough people might be like, I want to see what happens."
Yeah.
It would totally be a gimmick.
Yeah. Yep. Boy. So there's an adaptation of a Stephen King story called "Suffer the Little Children," and it's by the same people, Corey Norman of Bonfire Films, who made the previous Ann Bobby movie Hanover House. So there's a new Indiegogo campaign to fund "Suffer the Little Children." Also has Ann Bobby in it. So
again, they were just coming up just a little short on their goal, and it was only like, I don't know how many hours were left, but
yeah,
I don't know if they made it or not.
Yeah, and this is one of those campaigns where they just take whatever money they get. It's not like Kickstarter where if they don't reach the goal, then nobody gets charged.
When on Indiegogo, flexible funding campaigns, they will provide the money to the producers whether or not the goal is met. So
so it gives them the option of finding more money elsewhere or scaling it down or whatever they need to do.
I think I'm opening up their Indiegogo page right now, and they reached their goal. They did.
Wow.
It was it was $5,500 goal, and they achieved $5,690. So they managed to go $190 over their goal in 21 days.
So I wrote to Corey Norman. I said, hey, I'd like to help with this one, but I still have never seen I helped fund the first one, the Hanover House, and I've never even seen the movie, and that was like 2 years ago. And he's like, oh, okay, well, here's a code, and so he gave me a Vimeo code to look at it. I haven't watched it yet, though, because of Leviathan. I just, didn't have time, but I plan on doing that. I might do doing a review for it.
Right.
So, I think that was it for news. There was a lot because you had more.
Just one more thing we should talk about, the Scarlet box that the Arrow is releasing.
Oh, yes, right. I read the Scarlet box and I was like, what is that again? I forgot that it's that Hellraiser compilation. 1 through 3, right?
Yeah, but it's got a bonus disc that's got all kinds of, looks like neat stuff on it.
It has that Hellraiser book by Phil and Sarah Stokes that they've been teasing for a while.
Yeah.
That book that they wrote. So that's pretty cool. But for people, in the U.S., beware that it's going to be Region 2 and PAL. So that's 2 hurdles to get past, trying to watch these things. Sure,
but, it sounds really good. There are these new 2K restorations I'm looking at this stuff. It says limited edition contents, brand new 2K restorations of Hellraiser, Hellbound, Hellraiser II, and Hellraiser III: Hell on Earth. It's going to be a documentary. I don't know who made this documentary. I'm curious to know. Hellraiser Evolutions, a brand new documentary looking at the evolution of the hit horror franchise and its enduring legacy, featuring interviews with numerous cast and crew from the series' later installments. And this is where it starts getting less interesting to me, because it includes Scott Derrickson, director of Hellraiser Inferno.
So what's he doing on there?
Rick Boda, director of Hellseeker Dead and Hellworld.
Those movies aren't even included.
Alongside genre figures Marcus Dunson and Patrick Melton, writers of Saw 4 and Feast, and Stuart Gordon, director of Reanimator and From Beyond. From all these people that they mentioned, the only person I'm really interested in listening to would be Stuart Gordon, because at one point he was slated to be a director for Hellraiser Bloodline.
What this documentary is, I don't know if y'all, this was a documentary they were trying to put together for the Hellraiser franchise before Leviathan got a hold,
Oh.
Okay.
This was the interviews they got. So I guess they must have sold this to the guy, I can't remember his name. What's his name? He worked on Dread Central. No, it was Bloody Disgusting. It was Ryan. His name's Ryan Turek or something like that.
Oh man, I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
That's what this.
People kept asking about this thing and when is it going to come out? And
they didn't finish it. This is it was supposed to be a huge documentary with everybody on it. They were going to do all 8 films, I think.
Are you talking about the documentary that was supposed to have a new Cenobite that Clive Barker had made up just for that documentary and stuff?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at this old interview from Dread Central. It's an article from 2011. It says Ryan Turek still screaming, and they're talking about that the documentary that he's trying to do about Hellraiser. I honestly thought that this wasn't even going to be done anymore. So good catch on that, Rob.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. They were just like, okay, let's cut our losses and sell what we've got.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good point, Jose. What are they doing putting all these people who made sequels that aren't even included in this set?
Well, they're addressing the whole Hellraiser franchise.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for example, Marcus Dunson and Patrick Melton, they just made a treatment for what was supposed to be one of the Hellraiser remakes. I mean, they never actually did a Hellraiser movie. So, and, I'm just saying Scott Derrickson, okay, I'm not really interested in what he has to say because he made a horrible Hellraiser. And I was actually talking about him on Occupy Midian Group the other day.
Yeah, I was reading that report.
Explaining why I'm not really thrilled about Scott Derrickson or his installment of Hellraiser.
If you went on the Hellbound web and wrote that, people would be really upset.
Oh, I've done that several times.
Oh, that's a big fan. They're the fans there.
There's some people that think that it's the best Hellraiser movie.
Yeah.
I know. Well, they're entitled to their opinion. I'm sure.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the films have.
Yeah,
all the films have fans. I mean, I can't. But I'm not one of them.
Revelations.
Yeah.
Even Revelations has fans.
Yeah, they'll say like, "Oh, well, at least that one has a real Hellraiser story."
Right.
It's like, well, technically.
It's just that I think that these guys were just directors for hire that they got for these movies. Like Rick Boda, he directed Hellseeker, Deader, and Hellworld. Yeah, but you see the job that he did with the movies. They're terrible sequels. Deader and Hellworld were recorded back to back in Romania.
Yeah. I think Deader is pretty far above Hellworld, though.
I would be more interested in having like an interview with Kevin Yeager or Chappelle, the guy who I'm sorry, what's the name, Rob? The other guy who directed Hellraiser Bloodline?
That would be Joe Chappelle.
Joe Chappelle, that's it. I would be more interested in seeing Kevin Yeager and Joe Chappelle.
Yeah.
Talk about that,
talk about Bloodline, for example, then the 5, 6, 7, and 8.
I think they should have included Bloodline in this box set. Honestly, I mean, those 4 movies, I think, belong together. I think 1 and 2 belong together, and 3 and 4 belong together.
Mm-hmm.
There was a rights issue. Lionsgate owns the Part 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Bloodline, and they don't license their movies out.
They like to make their own.
So there you go.
Yeah, but they've already released that too. They wouldn't even probably even put any kind of like story like extra material into it. It's just something they would put out just to make a quick buck. In fact, I think this past Halloween, Echo Bridge had a lot of the Miramax titles, and Echo Bridge had put out a box set, or not a box set really, but you got 4 movies. You got Bloodline, Inferno, Hellseeker. Then they didn't have Deader in it. Then it had Hellworld.
Yeah, that's weird.
But then Lionsgate purchased all the rights because the rights ran out through Echo Bridge, and then
so Lionsgate owns all the Hellraiser movies beyond the first one, or the distribution rights.
They own 3 through
9.
No, not 9.
Oh,
3 through 8.
Okay.
I think I have a Blu-ray with 4 Hellraiser movies that Sarah gave to me once. It's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
She was like, "Here are your favorite movies," and I was like, "Oh God."
I have that one too, and they mixed up the pictures and the titles on the front cover.
Yeah.
But I just don't want people to think that I'm kind of trashing the Arrow box. I'm sure it's a wonderful box for Hellraiser fans. It's going to have brand new 2K restorations. I don't have a TV that would take the best advantage of this. But I'm just talking about the documentary. So now we know it was probably Ryan Turek who wrote this documentary. And there's going to be audio commentaries for all 3 films. But I'm also sure that these audio commentaries are going to be the same ones that have been, popping up in other releases.
Well, sure. Yeah, I don't think anyone from Arrow went to Clive Barker's house to do another Hellraiser commentary.
There's like 2 or 3 commentary tracks for Hellraiser at this point. And Anchor Bay used to have like 2 commentary tracks for both Hellraiser 1 and 2, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they have hours.
y'all have this, don't y'all? Didn't you get this, Jose, and you too, Ryan?
What's that?
The Cube box set by Anchor Bay when they released those,
I purposely didn't get that because I thought that they should have put it on Blu-ray, and they didn't. And I think just in Europe they did, but in the U.S. it's only on DVD.
Okay. That's what I'm getting is, mainly. I have that box. It's a DVD box from Anchor Bay. It came out maybe in 2005, I'm not sure. 2004. I honestly don't remember. But it's cool. I mean, that's the first time Hellraiser 3 came out in widescreen. And I enjoyed it a lot. It's DVD. It's Region 2 because it's British. But, yeah. And so more stuff on this Arrow box. They're going to have hours of archive material, including cast and crew interviews, electronic press kit material, storyboards, trailers, TV spots, and more. Again, this is all stuff I already have in my Anchor Bay set. I already have all the, 3 or 4 TV spots for Hellraiser and 3 or 4 TV spots for, Hellbound and all that stuff. And then they're
go ahead.
And then they're going to put in Clive Barker's Salamander Forbidden in this box too.
Oh, really?
Even though
I'm assuming those mentioned will be DVDs. Those aren't being upgraded to Blu-ray.
No, they're like 8mm or 16mm films, so it really doesn't matter much.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think the real draw for this box set is, I think having Hellraiser 3 on Blu-ray and Phil and Sarah's book. Yeah, that's the only thing that I'm interested in this set is the 200-page hardback book with new writing on Hellraiser and the Barker universe from Barker archivists Phil and Sarah Stokes. Yeah.
And it's going to talk about, Barker's early work, the genesis and production of the first 3 films, as well as a consideration of the development of the character of Pinhead and a look at Pinhead's latest literary incarnation, the Scarlet Gospels, all illustrated with a wealth of production stills and unseen material from the Barker archive. Yeah. That sounds really cool.
Although right now, as we're going into our main topic, I think that I'm a little bit Hellraisered out. But
I know. I feel the same way. Personally, I feel like I used to be a bigger fan of Hellraiser than I am at this moment. Like maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I would probably be like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to get this box." Nowadays, I'm like, "Oh God, I've seen it so many times. I have so many versions of this." And it's like after watching Leviathan, I feel like that's it. All right, that's done.
Should we go into Leviathan now?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So let's start with the packaging on it. Since we're talking about it, I think the packaging is awesome. I love the cardboard outer sleeve with the Julia's mattress, and then you could see her coming out of the mattress on the backside.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I made an unboxing video for it on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. And I think that this looks like something that you would get, at a store. It totally doesn't look like something that was funded by a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
high production quality.
Yeah, and I love the insert that's got Phil and Sarah talking about Hellraiser. And it says that it's Dr. Philip Chenard's Chenard Institute, notebook.
Yeah, and it's got the same artwork that's available on that T-shirt that you can find online for the Chenard Institute. Yeah, there's a T-shirt you can buy that has this this letter, the Psi. Yeah,
it's Psi for psychology.
For psychology. Yeah. So there's a T-shirt online. You can get this artwork that says Chenard Institute. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, and it's great. And so if we go into the first disc, I am completely shocked that they can fit 4 hours and like 37 minutes of stuff onto one disc. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that was physically possible.
They're probably double layer DVDs.
Well, even double layer. The Lord of the Rings DVDs. There were like 3 discs for a movie that big. Yeah, maybe because of the surround sound, and I don't know, and audio commentaries and stuff like that.
Later editions weren't that big, were they? The
Blu-rays are not
extended edition of the Lord of the Rings on DVD. I think I had the first one.
Yeah,
and it did have 3 discs, but at least one of those was extras and stuff. And the other one,
I think it was a documentary. But yeah. But I guess nowadays the compression is really good, and they can put all that stuff in. It looks nice.
Yeah, it does. It looks great. I mean, it actually, to me, upscaled on the PlayStation 4. It looked like high definition, and I probably wouldn't have known the difference.
When I first had to watch mine, I couldn't watch it on my regular PS3 or my Blu-ray player, so I had to watch most of it. The first 2 discs on my computer worked on that,
and that's a caveat about and there was some fan outcry about that, the fact that it's PAL, because he said it was region free, which it is. It's region free, but the video standard is PAL, not NTSC, and for some people in some setups they can't do that.
Oh, I didn't know that was an issue. I thought most TVs nowadays are a multi-system.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I think if you have an older TV, maybe it can't do it. And also, like Rob, your PlayStation 3 couldn't play it, right?
Yeah, it couldn't.
And I think he had put on in his description about it that on a PlayStation 3 you could switch it to PAL, right?
I just didn't know how to do it. If there's a way to do it, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think sometimes
look on the internet.
I think sometimes those optical drives can be finicky when those proprietary like consoles.
Yeah.
Just like sometimes you could buy a CD, but some car CD players wouldn't play certain CDs. Mm-hmm. That was an issue. So I don't know. But I played my DVDs on an American Blu-ray player that also reads DVDs, so I didn't have any problem with that. And I played them on my laptop, which is, of course, a PAL Region 2 laptop, so I could watch them there, too. So I didn't have any issue with that.
I think... and I have... Rawhead Rex is that I got is like region free, but it's PAL, and I've been able to watch that. I think I watched it on the PlayStation 3 when I got it. But I don't know. Maybe it's not PAL, but it's from the UK. I would think it would have to be.
I'm going to have to get an upgrade to a new for this era box set. Going back to that, I've got to get a region free player, all region player, because they'll be able to play it, because PS4 doesn't even do it.
No, and it's not. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just cracking down on people playing stuff in different regions or whatever, buying. Yeah. I don't know. I think that whole thing is
they're
so
not
stupid.
that. But the thing is, they're not that expensive. I mean, really, I know a lot of people complain about the NightBreed, but really, I found some good deals. Like maybe there was one for $100. So.
Oh, really? And
I read the specs on it, and it sounded fine. But
yeah, talk like that on Occupy Media, and we'll get you flogged.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I've read a lot of posts on that. They're just like, well, I shouldn't have. I mean,
yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, they sort of are taking a philosophical stance about it, that it should be. They don't want to support it, with their money, because it should be in the UK.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. But so I just wanted to say that the packaging of this is really good, like you said. But it's from the Disc Factory, I think. That's the name of the company that made it. And also the cover. The cover is really interesting. The cover is from UK movie poster artist Graham Humphreys, and he did some pretty cool art for the cover. Like you can see Clive Barker here, and Pinhead, Barbie, and the Cenobites, and of course, it's a wonderful looking poster. I'd like to have a poster of this.
There's an interesting picture down at the bottom there that's got Frank and like Skinless Julia together, and it's like that's cool. Not something that ever happened in
I know in the movie, but
yeah, it's funny.
That's a good point.
Me of like a Bride of Frankenstein or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Hey, maybe it happens off camera. Julia does get sucked back into hell, and Frank is in hell, even though Julia takes out his heart. But Can a dead man really die in hell? I don't know.
Yeah, well, then the Cenobites, Pinhead came
back.
They
talk about that in the documentary on the second disc.
Yeah, they did. So going into disc 1, I think one really interesting fact on there, I had no idea that originally Virgin Films was going to be the film company. Yeah, the producer.
They wanted a safer film, though.
Yeah, they thought it was, I don't know, too scary or whatever, too disturbing, and they passed on it.
Yeah, I think at that time I had never heard of Virgin Films until much later, maybe in the 90s. So maybe for British people that was something that they used to watch Virgin Films already with Richard Branson producing, but I honestly didn't know that either. So that was interesting to know that Chris Figg kind of got tuned into Hellraiser thanks to Richard Branson. So
yeah.
What y'all think of the opening titles?
Oh, I think they're great.
The opening titles were done pretty cool.
Yeah.
How they mixed in images.
In an upcoming review that we've got here, I said that the score for the Hellraiser, the Disc 1 part of it, sort of bugs me a little bit. Because like Jose said, it's like an alternate reality version of the NightBreed, or I mean the Hellraiser score by Chris...
Vito Velasco?
Yeah, the Vito Velasco one. Leto one is like an alternate version of the
Christopher
Young score. Yeah, they kept calling him Chris in the Christopher Young score. So it sort of would sort of poke at me a little bit and say like, hey, this is almost Hellraiser, but not quite.
I think that was intentional.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But it just, it's like this is what I wrote in my review. But it was like in the Matrix, where the Matrix is like a splinter in your mind. You know that something's wrong, but
right.
But you don't know what it is. And it had. I mean, I know exactly what's wrong in this case because it's not. It's just different enough. But I don't know.
I thought it was interesting. That they decided to go that way, probably to avoid, paying more licensing fees for the music and stuff.
Yeah, although Christopher Young's on here for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So they could have just asked him. I don't know.
I don't know if it works that way with the multinational record companies.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting as an exercise. It was an interesting thing to experience a music that was just a little different. It was almost like seeing like someone who's animated in CGI, and you can tell are they an actor or is it CGI? And there's an uncanny valley effect that you get the feeling something is wrong, like you said.
Yeah.
But
That being said, I felt that by the time we got to the second disc, I mean the main menu music sounded just like Hellraiser 2. But when they're doing the interviews and stuff, it sounded like something more new and interesting to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I liked his take on the. He did a rendition of the Halls of Mirrors. That was cool.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Yeah. The one with the music that sounds like a carnival fair music.
That was one of my favorite pieces of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite, I think, is the Resurrection Suite in the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one, definitely, too.
Which was actually, that scene, I learned from the documentary, that scene was shot after the movie was practically completed. At least they shot down principal photography.
And that was like... Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they were like, hey...
Originally, it was supposed to just come out of a wall.
And it was thanks to Tony Randall that they were able to make the scene the way that they did.
That's cool how he came in there. He wasn't like a jerk or anything. He really wanted to help the movie.
Yeah, although the guys from Coil would probably think he was a jerk.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I think that it would be really interesting to see the movie scored with the Coil soundtrack and just have both. Kind of like you have both, like with the movie Legend or Dawn of the Dead. There's like a European soundtrack and the American soundtrack.
You know how sometimes some movies have a choice that you can listen to the movie with soundtrack or just dialogue?
Yeah.
And only a few movies do this in their DVD.
Or isolated score, yeah.
Yeah, isolated score and stuff. That would have been awesome if Hellraiser could have been released like in a way that you could like... If someone could just get the dialogue track without the music and just score it with Coil, I would totally watch it. Yeah. I would be curious to see. Yeah. I don't know if they had enough music.
I don't know either.
It seems pretty short. Yeah.
I watched the bonus. It was on the bonus disc. They talked to the guy one of the members, the last,
Yeah.
I guess. And I don't think they had enough music. They had to stop.
Right. Yeah,
When a
it's
certain amount of tracks were created until they, were told, okay, we're going in a different direction.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like they must have made that music before the movie was even made, right? Because they were fired early on, when the movie was just starting.
Sure, yeah. They weren't really fired. More like Clive Barker told them that he didn't think it was going to work or something. I mean, that's...
Tony Randall told him that he needed to, if they wanted more money, they needed to go with Christopher Young and.
Well, I don't think that was a mistake.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that the soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah, it would have dated the movie a bit. I think. Yeah. If Coyle had scored the movie, because the orchestral soundtrack makes it more timeless. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah.
Yeah, versus having like an industrial soundtrack sounds totally 80s.
So I want to Coyle stuff. Have you?
What's that?
Coyle stuff?
No, I haven't. I haven't gone out to listen to any of their other.
I've listened to the
Hellraiser stuff.
Theme for Hellraiser. Yeah.
I've listened to I've listened to the Hellraiser stuff, but I haven't listened to any of Coyle's other.
I've listened to some other stuff from Coyle, yeah. I actually, one of the members from Coyle, Peter Christopherson, also known as Sleazy, I was a big fan of Throbbing Gristle and, other things that kind of overlap into it, because then there's all these, like, musicians who work together in certain groups, and then they go on into make groups of their own, like Genesis P. Orridge went on Psychic TV and stuff like that. There's an extra feature here where they talk about that, the unreleased themes. They interview Stephen Thrower, who was a member of Coyle. But, for example, I saw, back in 2004, I saw a concert with Peter Christopherson and the rest of the band that used to be Throbbing Gristle in Portugal, just 2 weeks before he died. So I saw the last concert that Peter Christopherson ever did.
Oh,
and it was
really?
kind of a sad thing, really. I saw the concert 2 weeks later. Boom! Peter Christopherson passed away, and
he fell down or something like that, because the guy mentions it in the interview.
And I think that those bands are more European. I mean, more big in Europe than in the U.S.
Yeah, they're more avant-garde. They're more like So I'm not an expert on Coyle, but I've definitely listened to their unreleased themes for Hellraiser, and also listened to a few more of their albums.
Yeah.
But
I think I thought this was really funny, because we've heard Doug Bradley tell the story of him auditioning, helping Claire Higgins with her audition, and she gets so into the part that she almost hits him with a hammer. Uh-huh. But then they go to Claire Higgins' version of the story, and she goes, "I didn't audition. That's all made up."
There were several moments like that in the documentary, right?
Really
where one person is saying something, I remember when this guy did this, this, and that, and then the other person is like, I never did that.
Yeah.
Movie sets kind of take on urban legends in a way.
Yeah, and there was people talking about how they had to have straws up their nose, and Jeff Portis is like, nobody ever had straws up their nose.
Yeah, and then Bob Keane says, well, you can put straws up their nose if you want to.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes, also keep in mind a lot of these people were very sleep deprived during the shooting of these movies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's sleeping under the table and stuff.
These poor people, they were like, I remember Little John Cormican.
Yeah.
Who also, for people who don't know, he plays that NightBreed woman. He's a man, but he plays this NightBreed woman that puts the blood on her nipples after killing one of the sons. Yeah. That's actually John Cormican with prosthetic breasts, painted all in black.
Yeah.
Oh. But he is also the face of the puzzle guardian in the torture pillar.
Yeah, I had learned that for the first time. I thought that was the actor, that was the bum.
Yeah, and I could tell it was a different actor, but I didn't know who it was.
I didn't know that.
Some people say that's Jesus Christ too. I've heard that's supposed to be Jesus.
Well,
I've heard some people interpret it that way. I mean, that's their interpretation.
But I interpret it as what y'all interpret it as. It's the bomb, It's the
I once made
It's like a montage that's putting all the elements of the movie back together and saying, "Okay, here's everything that happened."
Yeah.
They're all crammed together on this pillar.
I once made a research for the Pyramid Gallery for a box design, and I connected that figure of the Puzzle Guardian to Rasputin.
Yeah.
I could take that, yeah.
Like a resurrected Rasputin. But that was
That's
just
cool.
my invention, of course. But, yeah. So what do you guys think of the duration of the documentaries?
Well, so for I think for disc 1 it was too long. Honestly, 4 hours and 37 minutes.
I had to break it apart into smaller bits that I could digest because it's a lot of Hellraiser stuff, and sometimes you start feeling like you start getting almost hypnotized by the people talking about it, and at least I started getting a little more hypnotized into it. And I was like, at some points I was like, oh shucks, I'm distracted. I didn't even hear what Bob King just said. And I had to find it sometimes.
Me too.
And I'm not saying because it was boring, because it was so long. You kind of your attention span needs to be really focused.
And it's all back and forth of people sitting in chairs in front of a single color background talking about Hellraiser. And every once in a while it would be broken up by some narration and some still shots from the production, but not often enough, I think. Just to stop that hypnotizing thing from happening.
About the opening of the documentary for Hellraiser, which is basically a reconstruction of the scene where Pinhead is playing with pieces of Frank's face. We've all read, I don't know, I'm not going to say we've all read the script, but if you read the script of Hellraiser, in the beginning, the original scene was written that Pinhead would put together Frank's face, and then the face would kind of melt. It would be like pieces of wax that they would use for the effects, and the face would melt and go down into the boards and disappear. Mm-hmm. And apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but they tried before that face that we see in the movie that they actually shot. They tried several things to make that face. And one of them, I think, actually involved real pieces of meat.
Yeah, that's what they said in this documentary, and it smelled really bad.
And I had. What was the reason when they couldn't use it? Go ahead.
I guess they just didn't want, maybe for censorship reasons as well. I don't know if they were allowed to use that or something. Because there would be pieces of an animal on camera. But I do have a picture, and disclaimer. At least I have my name there. You, Brian, you have your name on the special thanks too, and we were backers and stuff. But I also sent a lot of images to Gary Smart. Some of them made it into the documentary, which was great. I'm really happy that he used some of the stuff that I sent him. Like I sent him all these scans of stuff that I had and pictures that I had gathered over the years. I must have sent him 400 and 500 megabytes of images.
Wow.
But yeah, so I did have a Japanese program for Hellraiser that had some interesting pictures on the inside. And one of them was a picture of one of those alternate designs that they used for the face of Frank, and I sent that to him. So that's what they're trying to reproduce in the beginning, opening of the documentary, is that face with the sheep's eyes and the big tongue and the pieces of, offal or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Huh. That was, you showed that picture to us on the email.
Yeah, I scanned that from that Japanese program. It was the first time I ever set eyes on that picture, so I'd never seen it anywhere else.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me my opinion on the duration of it, yes, the first disc probably should have been cut down by about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more, for maybe 40.
There was a part where Jennifer would she would watch parts of it in and out and then leave, or go to bed or whatever, but there was a part where she got up and left because every single person was saying, I don't use the word genius very often, or I don't like to use the word genius, but Clive Barker is a genius. And I don't know if all these people are aware that they all said the exact same thing, and then it was edited together where they were all saying them right back to back, one right after the other.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You're talking about one of the extras, I think.
No, it was in disc 1 and in the Clive Barker section of disc 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, they have to put in what they said about Clive Barker, and I guess it is true. I mean,
well, if a bunch of people say the same thing, they probably could have cut some of that down.
I've also used the word genius to describe Clive Barker a lot, and I'm probably always going to use the word genius. So, but yeah, it was interesting the way they cut things sometimes. It was really long. I'm quoting from memory. I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I think I remember seeing Hellraiser documentary 4 hours 37 minutes, maybe.
Yes, that's right for the first disc.
Yeah, so that's huge. But you know what? I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that you might want to take a few breaks because otherwise you might find yourself getting tired, a little tired. But not tired because it's boring, again. Tired because it's just too much information to process in one sitting. You know?
Yeah.
And it was probably, I think you had said this too, maybe 50% stuff that we'd heard before, or we'd read in interviews or other featurettes or whatever, and then another 50% newer, sort of new information or new perspectives on things. There was what is that lady's name? The costume designer. And
Rose Sylvester.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of her before because you always heard about the other lady.
Jane Wildgoose,
but I'd never heard of Rose Sylvester. But there's actually even like video footage of her there and stuff. And
I guess my interpretation. I'm not sure if this is what the actual thing, but I think Jane Wildgoose might have designed the Cenobite costumes, and Rose Sylvester might have actually fabricated them.
Oh, okay. So she was like the one in the trenches, trying to make them work for the movie and the actors and stuff.
Because if you visit Jane Wildgoose's website, and then she has a section talking about the Cenobite costumes and stuff, and she mentions how Clive got her a few magazines called Piercing Fans International Quarterly, which were popular at the time within the modern primitive movement that was kind of blooming, and that's what she used as inspiration to design the Cenobites. And I'm not sure if they mentioned this, but one of the unused designs for female Cenobite would have her carry in her back like kind of a basket figure, almost like a tribal thing, where she would have a desiccated fetus, like her dead baby or something. And I'm not sure if they show that. There's actually a little short sketch online that you can find about that, but I'm not sure if that was in there.
I don't remember that. They did talk about a different design that was just originally had a spike going through her throat.
Yeah,
her throat was not originally going to be open.
John Cormican designed that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to get confirmation on certain things that we've heard over the years, over and over. But at least now you could actually listen to the person who actually did it tell you about it. So.
Yeah. Well, and hearing Chris Figg's perspective, I don't think we've ever heard what he thought about Hellraiser.
I didn't even know what he looked like.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool because he was, he's a producer, so he thinks differently, but he was really proud of the movie that they made with the limited budget that they had. I mean, I think that was kind of the focus of what he talked about.
He's not a fan of horror films, though. That was also kind of interesting.
Yeah.
He just wanted to make a movie, and work with Clive.
Yeah. And one thing that I thought was really hilarious was the reason that they sent Tony Randall over was because they saw the dailies and they're like, this is looking like a staircase movie and it's boring. We don't want a staircase movie. Go over there and see what you can do. And it's like, and I'm like reading that, I'm like, or hearing them saying that, I'm like, what is a staircase movie?
I guess because there's a lot of going up and down stairs.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, they had to know that there's no such thing as a staircase movie.
Well, I think he mentioned people going up and down stairs. I think that's what he says. Yeah. But, I don't think there's too much of that. It's true that the set is very limited because it's just that one house.
Yeah.
Where they,
the first Hellraiser pretty much, Clive said this, is pretty much a haunted house movie. It just takes place into that house.
Yeah.
Would you agree with like maybe 80% of the movie? I mean,
it's a haunted house movie and sort of a and sort of a love triangle sort of a thing.
It's more domestic,
Faust
family problem.
Yeah.
Or you can say the same thing Joe Bob Briggs said. It's what did he call the Hellraiser movie once?
Sex in the Attic with Devil Head Slime.
Sex in the Attic meets Devil Head Slime or something.
I never heard that one. I'll have to write that down.
Joe Bob Briggs.
Okay.
4 stars. Check it out.
Yeah.
But one of the things I found funny was that the extent to which, Cult Screenings UK and Dead Mouse, Gary Smart and director, I forgot his name. I'm sorry.
Tony Randall?
No, I'm talking about the director of the John McDonough. John McDonough, the director of the documentary. The extent to which they went through to find all the cast that they could, all the crew that they could, to talk to them, even like the clapper guy or the costume lady. Yeah, and people really, I never even read their names in the credits. I never even remember their names. And
we've learned this through the podcast that the more you start trying to do this stuff, the more people know other people, and the easier it gets. Yeah,
I would say right now, the team that worked on Leviathan are probably the Hellraiser fans that know the most about these movies, because of the people they've talked to, because of all the things that the research that they've done.
For
Frank,
sure. Yeah.
This documentary for me was, a lot of it I knew already, but there was quite a lot of stuff that I was like you said, you get new perspectives on it from the people who actually worked in it.
Well, and this is so much, and there was people's opinions about Hellraiser who didn't have anything to do with the first film, like Ken Cranham and Barbie Wilde. Mm-hmm. I just wonder. I mean, there was so much stuff in there that they could have pared some of that down.
Sure, I wish I could get all the stuff that they didn't put in.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Yeah,
but at least now it's the thing that a lot of people want to ask these actors when they see them in conventions is like, hey, how was it like to be in the makeup? Or, hey, what are funny stories that you can tell me that happened on set?
And then they could just say, buy this disc.
And here at the Clive Barker podcast. And here at the Clive Barker podcast, we've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of the Cenobite actors and ask them those questions. And they mentioned the ducks and, all these things about, the mask they couldn't see, poor bastard, and all that stuff that they were referred to. But now, this documentary has it all. I don't think there's anything else that people can really think of the top of their heads that's not answered in this documentary.
It was hilarious to hear other people's perspectives that Nicholas Vince would be like lying down or sitting down somewhere or whatever. And they thought he was an empty costume and they would kick him or sit on him.
Or that some of the mattresses in Hellbound came from some closed-down shop and they actually stank to high heaven. Yeah. And the effects crew had to sleep on some of those. Yeah. Those things are like priceless. They really put a lot of they transport you to the behind the scenes. How long has it been since that movie's been out? Like 29 years?
Yeah. 27, I think.
Yeah, it's also image animation. You get all this. You get practically almost hidden in the middle of this documentary is another documentary about how image animation got started.
Yeah, right. I mean, I didn't realize that basically Hellraiser was the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, they've all, Bob Keane and Jeff Portis may have already had image animation, but, there was a different place, and they had worked in other movies before Hellraiser, but that crystallized this working team that went on to do Hellbound and Nightbreed,
Yeah.
Really cool.
Every one of those people has gone off to great careers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Better. I mean, that was their, what do you call it? Starting point that led them, to better, better things down the road. Bob Keane had been working on stuff for years. I didn't know he worked on Star Wars and did stuff with like Jim Henson.
Yeah,
and
Empire Strikes Back. Yeah,
I didn't know all that.
Right. Have you guys seen a movie that I think it was produced, and the effects I think were done by Bob Keane called Dog Soldiers? Have you ever seen that one?
No.
Oh God, yes, the werewolf movie.
Yeah. It's really cool.
That was produced by Nick the producer of Hellraiser 1 and 2 is Nicholas Fig.
Chris Fig.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he produced that.
Yeah, I really enjoy that movie. You should watch it, Mike.
I love werewolf movies. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's like military guys.
It's like Predator with werewolves or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Dog
That's
Soldier.
Military.
Okay, I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, plural. Yeah. So, I enjoyed it. The first documentary is really cool. And then I went to the second documentary, which is a little shorter, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that was a little bit of a relief, seeing that it was 3 hours instead of 4 hours 37.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say about the first disc. Did y'all know that dragon was only put together in like 4 days?
Yeah, and it was made out of some of it was real bones.
Yeah.
I had heard that it was a spur of the moment kind of thing that they did, but I didn't know the whole story like they explained it. Yeah.
And then when they put it in the fire, they really burned it up in a fire.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was intentional, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's like better get it right the first time. And it was a skull of like an ibex or something, and then what was it? It was a skull of some animal, and then they jammed the antlers from an ibex, I think, into the eye sockets.
Yeah. Yes. I think that really works well. I mean, it may have been like a spur of the moment thing, but sometimes that's how you make these scenes in movies that become really, fan favorites. Like the Frank sequence, the resurrection. The rebirth. I mean, that was almost done as kind of almost an afterthought. Tony Randall said, well, we have the blood falling in the floor, and then we cut to something else, and then the next scene, Frank is talking to Julia. There's something missing here. We need to put in something that shows the rebirth.
And that was really smart, and you don't often hear about notes from a producer that actually help and make sense. Yeah.
He actually had him reshoot the Cenobite scene with he told him to add smoke, that lighting.
Yeah, the hospital one.
Yeah. So I thought that was a good, actually improve that scene.
I guess so. I mean, we don't know what it looked like before, but I would assume so. I would assume that it's better.
I'm just going to be the one to say this. It's just that the only thing missing from this thing, and I know this is not for lack of trying, because Gary Smart and his team, and the director, McDonough, and all these guys, they really went to the U.S., they went to L.A., they thought they were going to do it. The only thing missing is Clive Barker.
Yeah.
It would really have been like, man, I wish Clive Barker's health was better, that he could have, be in the documentary. Because that would have really... But at the same time,
That would have punched it up a little bit.
That would have punched it up a little bit. But unfortunately, Clive wasn't feeling up for it, or I don't know. So
and they probably would have had less people talking about Clive Barker in this if he was actually in the...
Yeah, because then it would made it kind of a little awkward or something.
Yeah.
But that was the only thing I thought really... They have everybody's point of view on the movie except the director.
Yeah, well, and Grace Kirby, of course, not for lack of trying. Sure. It's just that, and Ashley Lawrence, too, right? It's like these are people that they asked and they said no.
Yeah, I'm sorry about Ashley Lawrence not being in this as well.
Yeah. I think that it seems like if Clive Barker was in it, she would have said yes. That's just my opinion, but...
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, she seems to really love Clive Barker.
It doesn't detract much from the documentary. It's just I just had to say this because I felt that something like that was missing. Like Clive Barker was missing from this. Mm-hmm. But they really tried, and it's not their fault.
Yeah,
and
well, they were actually at his studio and talking to Johnny Raymond. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the moments where they actually go into all that technical detail, especially for the resurrection of Frank.
Yeah.
Where they mention, and stuff like Clive Barker used to call KY jelly that they used for the makeup effects, elephant cum.
Yeah.
More elephant cum.
And Frank's heart was like a condom that was blown up and...
Yeah.
Yeah, they were buying condoms by the hundreds from the store.
Yeah, some guy went to the doctor, or went to the shop to get all these condoms, and the guy was asking him, he's like, man, are you going to some kind of party or something?
And he's like, it was easier just to say yes than...
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
It also noted that, I don't know if this was a joke by somebody, but it said Prince Charles watched the film. Wow. Is that true? Did you pick up on that at the end?
Yeah, right at the screening. I think it was Doug Bradley said that he was there at the. Maybe it was Doug Bradley. I forget.
I think you're right.
At the premiere, and Prince Charles was there.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must have been one of the times where I kind of spaced out watching the documentary.
And then in later on, and then later on, as sort of a joke, when Nicholas Vince and Simon Bamford were being interviewed. On disc 3. And he said, "What's the impact of what's the impact that Hellraiser's had on you?" And Simon said, "Well, it must have been when I was knighted by the Queen."
Yeah.
That guy's funny.
He is hilarious.
Really good sense of humor.
Yeah.
We need to come up with a reason to bring him back on again.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
Said she walked out of the first movie.
Oh, yeah, because she said she's still never seen the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that is just so funny. I mean, Claire Hagen's segments were kind of... I just thought that she sounds so normal, you know what I'm saying? I mean, she sounds so... like you said, like she didn't even finish watching the movie.
And people ask her questions about Hellraiser, and she didn't really know the answer. Like at Monster Mania Hellraiser.
Yeah, but that's normal. I've come to learn over the years that that's really normal. Sometimes fans know a lot more about a movie than the actors who worked in it, because for them that's a job, and they're there, they do it, they're on set, they don't see the magic. They just see the technical stuff behind it, and Somebody asked something like in Hellraiser II about her teeth, like when she was wrapped up in the bandages or whatever. They're like, "How come you don't have British teeth?" or something like that. And God, what a horrible question!
I know, and it was first of all a terrible question, but then the way that she answered made it seem like, oh, that was me the whole time, which isn't true. It was
Deborah Joel.
The dancer, and then also Little John, right? I put for the disc 2 I put a note that said Michael McDowell, and I can't remember why I wrote that. Was there something noteworthy about him talking?
Well, he was supposed to originally write and direct Hellbound.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah.
And he wrote, he's the guy who wrote Beetlejuice. I didn't know that.
Yes, that's what it was. Thank you. That's right. That's a really interesting fact. I had no idea about that.
But then I don't know why he stepped down, maybe to do something else or maybe creative differences. But then Tony came in to be the director.
Yeah.
One good thing you could tell about watching these 2 discs is that everybody just enjoyed making the first 2 movies. There was no drama on the sets, no prima donnas.
Yeah, everybody seemed really proud of what they did, except for Claire was kind of like, "Oh, I don't know what happened. It was just a fun time."
Yeah, but it's still it was good. It was a good way to make movies.
Yeah,
I don't think movies are made that way anymore. I don't think a lot of people. I don't know if I don't want to put it into a box, but I don't know if a lot of people go and they're not really happy making movies like they did. Especially in a situation like that.
I just heard on another podcast where they were talking about the Marvel movies are made by sort of committee decisions.
Yeah.
And so the director doesn't really have that much power, and that's why, they're having a tough time getting directors to come back or to stay.
They had hired a woman. You can cut this out if you want to, but they had hired a woman to direct Black Panther.
Yeah.
Then she left.
Yeah, and the same with like Edgar Wright for Ant-Man, right? He backed out of it.
Yeah, after
I guess once you start making movies, they're have budgets of like $150 million and up.
Yeah.
It really introduces a lot of stress into the whole thing.
Well, you have to be really careful about what you're doing is becoming Marvel movie canon, which has never been, movie canon for comic book movies has never been a thing anybody ever worried about or cared about.
They keep rebooting the movies.
I know.
I mean, how many? They rebooted the Hulk. They rebooted Spider-Man.
Yeah, they
want to reboot the Fantastic Four now. I went to see a movie the other day, and I came out, and there was a huge stand-up of Reed Richards looks like a guy in his 20s.
They're basing it off of the comic book. The
Ultimate Universe or something.
Ultimate. They're called the Ultimates.
Yeah,
the younger versions. Yeah, exactly. That's what that's based off of.
Okay. Yeah, but then it's like, so there's a thing that looks actually pretty cool, but then there's like Johnny Storm it's an adoptive brother of Sue Storm, and so he's played by a black actor, and it's like, all right, and then Dr. Doom is going to be this angry blogger from the, Eastern Bloc or something.
That's what turned me off about that. I was like, you can't.
And I'm like,
come on, man. I mean, this make it a pissed off, guy.
Yeah.
And that's what Doom was in the books.
Well, he was,
right.
Yeah.
He's a monarch.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
back to Leviathan, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
seems everybody came back for the sequel too.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Cast and crew.
Yeah.
Except Andy Robinson.
Well, he just said, he talked about that too. He just said there really isn't much for me to do here, guys. I mean,
and that was
true.
It was always said before that he backed out because he asked for the same amount of money, and they said no because your part is smaller. You're not going to get the same amount of money, and that might have been part of it. But here we're hearing that he was like a Siamese twin to Frank that just was sort of glued together on Frank, and he just had this like perpetual scream face on his face the whole time.
Oh yeah,
they did a drawing of that too, which is cool. Whoever did the drawings for this production, that was pretty neat looking.
Yeah,
there's alternate drafts of the Hellbound script that you can find online, and I've known this. There used to be. You remember when FAQs used to be a thing on BBSs? You would go on a bulletin board service and someone would have a text file like the FAQ for like this and that. Yeah. There was an FAQ for Hellraiser, which I printed out back in 94. Back in 94, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joey's here.
Hi, Joey.
He can't hear you guys, though.
Okay. Oh. And so I printed that out, and that's the first time I've ever heard of deleted scenes from a trailer. Not a trailer, from the script of Hellraiser.
Okay, Joey, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Okay.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
They can't hear us.
Yeah.
But so I was saying, like 94, 95, I printed out this FAQ about Hellraiser 1 and 2. And that's when I first read these deleted scenes from Hellraiser, Hellbound. Mm-hmm. And they had Frank and Frank and Larry being in hell. And, there was going to be this scene where the surgeons would come in and say, Kirsty would actually bring her dad out of hell. And then they would stumble, because there was like a scene in a knife room, a room covered in knives, where Frank and Larry would be fighting, and they would be trying to cut themselves off of each other. And then Kirsty would take her father into the hospital out of hell, and there would be this scene where they go into
an elevator?
There's the elevator scene where the Chatterer 2 tries to catch them and the door closes and cuts his fingers, and then they would go talk to a doctor, and the doctor would be like, can you save my dad? And the doctor would be like, no, I can't do anything. He's got a ruptured aorta. He's going to bleed to death. And then his face would transform into Pinhead.
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing. It was really supposed to be Kirsty going into hell, getting her dad. And once they wrote Andy Robinson out of the movie, that's when they decided to say, well, it was Frank tricking her all along. And there are versions of the script of Hellbound where you can read the whole thing, where Larry would be in there and it would be that, monster with Frank and Larry stuck together by the hip or something. And they would fight in this room covered in knives and cut each other apart. So,
Peter
I know that
was never a fan of that idea. He's actually glad it got dropped because when they first were coming up with the story, which he lost because Clive wanted it in there, he wanted it to. He was glad.
Yeah.
At it because he was like, what did Larry do to anybody?
Yeah, to go to hell, it's not fair.
I remember long discussions about that in that website, Cenobite.com, where people were saying, do you think Larry is in hell? And there would be like 137 replies, and everybody would be like, yes, he is in hell. And then we'd be like, no, why would he be in hell? And then, there was this definitive opinion from Peter Atkins in one of the commentary tracks for Hellbound. So where he said, I don't think he should be in hell.
Yeah. And also that line from Frank where he says, "When you're dead, you're fucking dead."
Dead. Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me seems kind of more like that's the influence of Tony Randall, because he's he talked about being an atheist, and and like this hell is more of like a hell of
the mind.
The mind, yeah.
I always went for that. I mean, I always thought that was more interesting. I mean, I know we mentioned the Scarlet Gospels takes place in like a hell with like Satan and stuff, or Lucifer. But for years, I really stood up to the idea that this hell was not a hell of sin and damnation. So I was like, this is more like a parallel dimension where there's this creature called Leviathan, and you can only go there if you open the box or something. So I always felt that was more interesting than saying, well, that's the hell where you go if you're a bad guy and then you die.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. It's a much more interesting concept.
Well, and I think an interesting trade-off, because in Hellraiser, the Cenobites were these weird, mysterious kind of things, and then they talk about this too. And in Hellbound, they demystified the Cenobites, but then they introduced Leviathan, and it's like that's even crazier and more mysterious and strange than the Cenobites were.
Right. And that FAQ that I mentioned, that text file that I downloaded back in 94, 95, that was also the first time when I read that Leviathan was supposed to be this pulsating glob of fleshy evil.
Yeah.
And
Peter
then
talks about that a little bit more.
Yeah, and he says Tony Randall was one of the guys who said, why not make it like something more geometric, more abstract?
Yeah.
So that was cool. And also Malahide.
Dr. Malahide. Bad skin.
Yeah, bad skin. Like, I also read, that was the first time I read the alternate speech that Malahide was supposed to do. And that Ken Cram says, if you look at my mask and the things I'm saying, it doesn't match. So, it doesn't match.
I can't really tell, but he says being an actor and saying what he originally said, he can tell.
Huh.
Right.
I can't really tell, the difference.
Well, and it was funny that Pete Atkins said, he's a neurosurgeon and a psychiatrist.
Of course, nowadays that would be like, you're either one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to be in school forever.
Yeah, I mean, they still could be both.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be a medical doctor for both of those.
Sure. But, so I've read that stuff early, like 20 years ago, and I was like, wow, that's cool. And then when the internet started getting bigger and I discovered that the other drafts of the Hellbound script, that's when I started reading it and understanding, wow, that explains a lot of, loose ends in the story that, like Kirsty saying she was going in to get her dad and her dad not even being in the story.
Boy, Kirsty sure ended up in the wrong mental hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
I know.
And the budget was originally supposed to be much bigger, then the stock market crashed.
Yeah, and the value of the U.S. dollar versus the Great Britain pound went down.
I think they call that Black Monday when Black Monday hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that cut a lot of the budget as well. But still, Christopher Young managed to do an awesome Black Mass soundtrack, which became, almost a defining composition for Christopher Young. I mean, for his whole career. I mean, if it wasn't Hellraiser really gave him a career. I mean, he's a talented guy, but these are the things that stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big letdown for Hellraiser 3. It would have been a completely different movie if it had Christopher Young do the score.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have all the soundtracks on CD.
I just have
the first. I just have first 4. I didn't know they released any more after that. Did they release more after that?
So there's Inferno. I don't remember if I have the one. I think I have the soundtrack for Inferno, which was never released commercially, but it was released or leaked by the composer. And then there was also the one for which one is it? I think it's Hellseeker. I also have the one for Hellseeker, which was also sold by the composer on his website in a very limited edition.
Oh, okay.
And as for the soundtrack for Hellraiser 4, I think I have that one. I have the one for 3, and I have the other 2 movies. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Hellraiser II CD soundtrack comes with a movie called, like, High Point.
High Point.
Yeah.
And it was another score he did, Christopher Young.
Yeah, it must have been a really short one, so that...
Yeah. I think I have one from Cinedisc, which was the original CD, the very first CD release of the Hellraiser soundtrack that has the same cover as the poster. Pinhead is holding, like, the box.
Yeah.
Hellraiser.
That's the one I have, too.
Yeah, that has, like, the blue background and Cinemark disc. That was the first CD edition of the Hellraiser soundtrack. And then there were the other ones from Silva Screen and stuff, and, yeah. But, wow, it's certainly very exhausting documentary, very, very detailed.
I have a note here that says Barry Norman, and I can't remember who that was.
Oh, Barry Norman was the critic. It was a critic.
Yeah,
critic.
Yeah, that's right.
He hated the first Hellraiser.
And then he admitted to Clive Barker that he doesn't like horror movies, and he's like, well, what are you doing reviewing them then? Why don't you just leave them alone?
He was like telling them, that's not your choice to...
Yeah, you should review them on their own merits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read that story about them cornering Barry Norman in a room in the studios. If you have the Shadows in Eden.
Yeah.
Shadows in Eden book.
Yeah, but here we actually got to see the video of his reviews, which was kind of cool. I mean, not cool. It was kind of irritating, but but interesting.
Well,
when he first came to the set, he ran into Doug Bradley in full Pinhead costume and it startled him.
Yeah,
he just scared the crap out of him or something.
Yeah, and
there's a story in the books of the Shadows in Eden book that one night. Doug Bradley walked out in the hallway, and there was a cleaning lady cleaning the studio in Pinewood, and that lady just kind of dropped her mop and ran. I don't know how true that is, but that's in there.
And so
it seems Clive was he was hands on a lot, but he pretty much stayed away. I mean, a good deal. I mean, let Tony
for Hellraiser 2.
Yeah, he stayed away, but let them make their movie.
I think it was more to do with, like, working on writing and NightBreed, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear the part in the extra feature about Hellraiser 3? There's a moment where they say that the producers, and I think the producer for Hellraiser 3 was Lawrence Mortoff, but at one point they paid Clive Barker to not be involved with the movie.
Take his name off of it?
Yeah.
Then they repaid him to put it back on.
Yeah, and then at one point they were shooting the movie, and then they contacted Clive Barker again, and they were like, you know what, we'll pay you to put your name back in the movie. So he got paid twice.
Yeah.
That's a funny story.
And he had done, maybe because he had helped write the story, and maybe they changed it a whole bunch. I don't really understand. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why it happened that way.
Yeah.
Tony Randall has story credit on the third film, but what part of the story is his? I mean, he says, like, the execution was not what he would have done.
I'm not sure. Maybe he bounced ideas with Peter Atkins, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and there's a whole other script for Hellraiser 3 that's completely different.
Yeah, was that the one he was involved in?
I don't think so. His name is not in that script, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was the one where Pinhead would run a demonic brothel.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And he had that insect carapace for his skin or for his outfit.
Yeah, he would almost have a kind of armor thing,
Yeah.
That would have taken it in a very different direction.
Yeah.
And had the toy maker in it.
Yes, that's right.
Right. Yeah, it had Le Marchand in there as a blind old man who would be an architect and stuff like that. And then we got in Bloodline, we got the goody Two Shoes Le Marchand.
Yeah.
So
had to have him be a good guy on that one.
Yeah.
So that's another thing about this DVD set is that there's also at least a almost 32-minute documentary about Hellraiser 3.
Yeah. It's the very last thing on disc 3.
Right. It's the very last thing there. So.
You talked to Ken with the Carpenter who played. Did his voice get dubbed in the movie? In the final mix of
sounds
Hellraiser?
like it, right?
Yeah, his voice is totally different.
But why? He talks like really regular. His English is good.
Yeah.
It sounds like when they turned him into a Cenobite, either they put an effect on his voice or they dubbed it with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe it's an effect on his voice. It's kind of like NightBreed, where it's hard to tell.
When he's not a Cenobite, I don't think they dubbed his voice.
Yeah.
No. It's just normal age, now he's older, so his voice is a little different, but, yeah. But,
I thought that the Toymaker, little thing with Simon Sace was really interesting about the details of all the symbols and, the pictures that they make and stuff like that.
Oh, that was my favorite. That was my favorite part. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Seeing, like, the engineer.
Yeah.
The one-eyed woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
the crouched man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. I didn't know that. That was stuff I really loved.
To skip around a little bit, I think another thing that I thought was really cool was hearing from Imogen Borman.
Yeah.
Because we'd never heard her perspective on anything before.
That's right. Yeah. I think she has her career didn't go very far, and I think she had some issues in her private life, but it's nice to see that now she's doing well, and she's actually getting into these things with conventions and documentaries.
Yeah.
So that was really fun to see, and she still looks quite stunning.
Yeah.
I just didn't think she added a lot of information about Hellbound. It was just interesting to have her there and talk about it, though.
Yeah, no, it was a kid's perspective of being on the set. Which I thought was interesting. I mean, she didn't have a lot of factual stuff, but
she did bring up some stories about Claire Higgins, and then Claire Higgins, they cut to her, and she's like, "I don't remember anything like that." Like she was saying that she didn't like the dress that they got for Julia. That's like, I wouldn't put this in my garbage can.
Yeah.
It's like, and then they cut to Claire Higgins, and she's like, "I've never complained about anything that the set that the stylist would give me for a movie. I mean, what's the point?"
Well, and she said she didn't even audition.
Yeah. And Doug Bradley has such a detailed story about her holding a rubber hammer.
Yeah.
No, not a rubber hammer, a real hammer.
A real hammer. You almost got hit.
And actually, because Doug Bradley was saying that he did the part of one of
the men that got brought up from
one of the men that he was doing an audition with Claire Higgins, and he was playing the other role so she could tell her lines as Julia.
Yeah.
And that one time she was supposed to go for the hammer thing, and she went at it, and he kind of ducked, and then he came back up, and apparently people told him, like, "Oh my God, when you came up, she almost hit you with a hammer." And then they cut to Claire Higgins like, "I didn't audition for her. I don't know what. I never heard that story before. I didn't audition." And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay. Doug Bradley, I'm sure he has embellished the story so much in all these conventions over the years that, for all intents and purposes, that's the story of how he remembers it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny. Gary Oldman carrying him.
Oh yeah.
Gary Oldman was jealous of him doing Hellraiser 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if Gary Oldman had played, Shinar? That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Ken Cranham, who did a great job, but
it would have been really good in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they mentioned how afterwards he did Dracula because he always wanted to be a monster in a movie like that. Yeah. So that was cool.
Yeah, Gary Oldman is awesome.
Absolutely.
I'd probably put him in my top 5 actors.
Yeah.
Oh, and a thing that I'm not sure if we mentioned yet is that Oliver Smith, who played Frank the Monster, narrates the whole thing. Narrates the documentary.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
I liked his voice.
He didn't have a whole... I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of breaks between sections where he narrates. Compared to the amount of time that we spend, with people talking. But
sure.
But it was nice. It was nice when that came up.
Yeah, he seems like a really fun guy. Just a very relaxed guy. I mean, his segments are recorded with him just laying on a couch and talking about things, gesticulating.
Yeah.
And now I recognize his voice whenever I watch BBC America because he's one of the guys who announces some of the shows. Like, there's this new show on BBC. There's a new show on BBC America called the Tales of Jonathan Strange and something Morel. It's based on a book that's really popular apparently, and Jonathan Strange. And I was listening to the previews of it and on BBC America, and I was like, oh my God! Now that I've seen Leviathan, that's Oliver Smith narrating this for BBC America. So that was cool.
Yeah.
I do wish that he had done like more of a Frank the Monster kind of voice. He had a very announcery kind of voice, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, now after this, let's watch another movie by I don't know, it just sounds like something you'd listen to after a commercial break.
Oh, yeah.
I like the chapter where they talked about the death of Browning, how he had to wear like this complete chest piece over it so he wouldn't hurt himself with the dulled razor. But even then, he was working himself so much over with it that when they took that thing off, he was covered in scratches.
Yeah, and marks.
So he was just going off.
Right. Suffer for your art.
Yeah. Yeah, but that scene is so difficult to watch.
Said the Clapper guy had to leave the set because he felt he was going to vomit.
Well, and apparently originally that scene went on really long time, and then the censors made him take it out.
Yeah, they overshot it because they knew they were going to have to cut.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the things in my collection of memorabilia about Hellbound is when the very first premiere of Hellbound, of course, the very first premiere. The premiere is the very first opening, but on the premiere of Hellbound, they gave out what was called fright bags. And I have one of those. The fright bag is basically a barf bag, except on the side it had printed Hellbound, Hellraiser II, fright bag. And they gave that to people who were going in to watch the movie because, it was so gross.
You told me that before. They did the same thing for what's that? Lucio Fulci's Zombie.
Oh, okay.
Fulci's over here.
Yeah, Fulci.
Fulci's Zombie.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They would.
You ought to post that. I'd like to see a picture of that.
Oh, sure. I posted pictures of it before of my collection, but I'll definitely send you guys a picture so we can add it to the show notes. Yeah.
Nice.
So it was great to hear Ken Cranham talk about his role, and I think he over the years he's kind of grown fond of the movie because I guess a lot of fans kind of come up to him and talk about it. But I don't know if this is accurate to say, but I have the idea that a few years back he wasn't very much into the whole going into conventions about Hellraiser and stuff. But I think he's kind of ingratiated himself a little more with the role, and now he actually enjoys talking about it because he never really talked much about the movie before.
Well, and Hellraiser 2 had a lot of criticism from movie critics, right? Like
and fans.
Yeah, Roger Ebert really ripped it apart.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I don't really care about that sort of money, but I really was surprised. I thought for when I was growing up, I thought those first two films were always considered, classics. And I mean, I didn't realize when I went back to look at some old Fangorias that even Clive had problems with it.
Yeah.
Stuff I didn't know.
Well, Doug Bradley doesn't like it as much as like Hellraiser 3 either.
When he thinks it, and he's right. I'm not going
to... That there's too much going on in the movie.
There's so many endings that they don't tie up all the stories at the end. And he's right. I mean, I can't... It's my favorite Hellraiser, but I can't say that it's a perfect film because he's right that there are a lot of things that are trying to solve,
well, and it's lucky that Larry wasn't in the movie because that would have been one more layer of complication added to the plot.
Sure. I mean, when you look at that alternate script for Hellbound, where Larry would be in it, it would just be a really complicated movie. It would be a little different from what we got because, Leviathan wouldn't be the same thing. The ending would be kind of different and all that stuff. But one of the things I wish that they had put in the movie, and they do address this in the Hellbound documentary, is the scene where the Chatterer would get the scar tissue taken off of his eyes.
That would have that would have really helped. It would have made more sense.
Because the way the guy described it was cool.
Oh yeah. Cliff Wallace, I think.
But he said he fucked it up or something.
Yeah, Cliff Wallace came up with that thing, and I guess he said that it didn't work very well, and Bob Keane was like, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was necessary. It added another layer to it that, But which one would you... Personally, which Chatterer do you prefer? Like the Hellraiser 1 or the Hellbound Chatterer with eyes?
I think Hellraiser 1. I mean, I think the Chatterer with the eyes looks a little bit less like a messed up person and more like just kind of a monster.
That's kind of the same thing I feel about it. Yeah, it looks more like a horse-like face, or more like an alien face than a human, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd go more with the first one. It looks, like you said, more of a messed up person. And of course, we know why they did that. They did that just so Nicholas Vince could have eye holes that he could see. Yeah. Because otherwise, I can't imagine what it's like. One of the things I felt sorry for the people who were in makeup is when Jeff Portis was telling how he put Doug Bradley and Ken Cranham in full makeup 3 days in a row, and they never used them.
That's kind of Doug Bradley went crazy.
Yeah.
There was like a chapter on that disc where he's like, he went stir crazy. He was like one that was going to jump out at the image animation window where they were shooting at.
He
and
was going to throw.
They had to go take him to get
B12 vitamin shot, I think.
Yeah, they had to go get him a beer, and he was dressed in his Pinhead makeup.
Oh, yeah. That was another time when he actually walked out of the set, and he went out across the street and went to a pub and got a beer and drank it outside.
But you were right. He said they were going to throw out something, too. Yeah.
The episode when he had that event was he had a Pinewood nurse came over, and she was giving everyone B6 or B12 vitamin shots.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And this is a story that Doug Bradley has mentioned this before many years ago, and he has mentioned this many times. But he got his B12 shot or whatever, and then apparently he got into this freak-out mode where he decided he had enough, and he grabbed Jeff Portis' Filofax and threatened to throw that thing out of the window and break it in a million pieces if he didn't promise, not to put any more makeup on him. And basically, they gaffer taped him to the chair, and he calmed down, and whatever the vitamins were, they kind of wore off, and he got back to sitting in the chair and got the makeup on. But I can understand why, because there was so many hours of makeup, and sometimes they would just be like, "All right, well, we're wrapped for the day, and we're not going to use you today." And after he'd been in makeup for all day long, getting to the studio at 4 a.m. going through 6 hours of makeup, and then walk around in the makeup, which is not comfortable. And, Ken Cram was saying, please use me for something. Just use me for a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was begging them, I've been in makeup.
And they're just oh, we're so sorry. We just don't have time.
Yeah, I guess they would be shooting other things, and it would be taking too long. And then once, because every day when you go into a studio and you're shooting a movie, you have something called the call sheets. The call sheet basically describes what crew is going to be necessary, how many hours you're going to work, scenes you're going to do, effects requirements, and all that stuff. And so if it's a good movie, I guess the call sheets are going to be used, and you're going to go through everything and do everything for that day. But I guess if things take too long, or it's this effect failed, we have to go back and do it again or something, then you might end up having to transfer some of those things to the next day. So I guess that must have been what was happening. But yeah, the poor guys, getting put in makeup through all that trouble and then being told, okay, we're just going to take your makeup off again, and you're going to go home and sleep 4 hours and come back.
Yeah.
Wow.
They went through a lot to make this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how many shooting days they got, but yeah, for the making movies is not a glamorous thing. For us, the fans, we get to see the end result, but making it, it's very, could be stressful.
Yeah.
You're they're working almost 20, you're working maybe 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And,
especially image animation people.
Yeah.
Also, for NightBreed, when we talked to other people who worked on NightBreed, they would tell us stuff that they would sleep on the studio, not on the studio, but they would sleep on the effects, building and stuff. They would just go under a desk and be like, all right, I'm just going to take a nap, while the makeup is setting or the mold is setting or something. And then they would just wake up again, or someone would tell them, hey, wake up. And they would just go and finish the makeup and do the work for the day. And I guess that is when you like what you do.
It's worth it.
You'll definitely be up for that, but then you can't do that every day.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that overall, I totally recommend this to anybody that's a Hellraiser fan or a Clive Barker fan, for sure. I mean, I think what I don't recommend is doing what we did and trying to sit down and watch it in a short period, watch the whole thing in a short period of time. If I had had more time to stretch it out a little bit more, I would have been a little happier watching it, I think. Yeah,
I guess we kind of fell prey to our own impatience in coming up with episode number 99. Because
right. Yeah, it's been a month since we did the last one.
We also want to tease people about episode 100 and tell them that, we finally got something really special coming for you guys for episode 100. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and that'll be in a regular amount of time in 2 weeks. It won't be a whole month before that one.
Right. And
we need to talk about. We added a new member, new contributor to the Danny Stewart.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. Andy Stewart, who is also a producer in Leviathan, right?
Yeah, and he's posted a couple of things on the Facebook page so far.
Yeah, so welcome to the team. Danny Stewart, who we've known for some time now on Facebook.
Yeah,
so
really nice guy.
Yeah. Really cool. So you guys may start seeing another person posting on the blog, and feel free to leave comments and tell them hi. So you guys have a great rest of Sunday, and
you too.
Yeah, you too.
All right,
and I'll talk to you during the week.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
See you
all right.
later. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial fan site and podcast that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Films. This podcast and site are a labor of love by the fans for the fans. News, features, and show notes for this episode can be found at www.clivebarkercast.com. Go to iTunes and please leave us a review. Reviews really help us get the word out about Clive Barker. You can also find us on Podomatic, Xbox Music Store, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Double Twist, BlackBerry, and Pocket Cast. We have a Facebook page, so come on and like our Facebook page and join the Occupy Midian group for lots of discussion about NightBreed and other Clive Barker stuff. On Twitter, we're at BarkerCast and at Occupy Midian. Opening theme by Mark Buckle.